morning. Thanks for joining me today. My name is Stephanie with Brew and Bookmark, and thank you for joining our video today. I wanted to chat with you about how you can read more. I had a really great conversation with a coworker of mine last week that I just was like, you know what? I feel like this is something I need to share. So she approached me knowing that I read a lot of books, and said, you know, I really want to read this book this summer, and I'm really having a hard time because it's thick and it's overwhelming, but it's important to me to read it because it's something I went to school for. And I said, well, what is it? And she showed me, it's called The Body Keeps the Score, and by Bessel van der Kolk, MD. It is a nonfiction, and it's just under 400 pages. It's pretty thick, but it's also a very dense book. And I happen to know that one of my other friends is reading this book as well. And so I thought, you know, let's read it together. And she's like, really? And I said, yeah, I'm interested in this kind of stuff. I love to learn something new. And so we got to talking, and I told her, I said, there's some ways to do this so it's not so overwhelming for you. And we just were chatting, and told her that, you know, something that I've been doing recently that I found with another booktuber that I will post her link down below. She to the video that this is referencing, but she presented several ways to read more. And one of the ones that I found and I took away from her video was tabbing so that you every so many pages. And so in a book that I'm currently rereading called The Crown of Midnight by Sarah J. Maas, if you can see at the top, like I have all these tabs up here, and they're marking every 50 pages. And the reason I chose 50 pages in here, you can choose whatever you want. You can choose 10, 100, whatever. But the reason I chose 50 is because I'm annotating it. So it's going to take a lot longer to read it than normal. And so for me, I was like, well, I wanted to try to read 50 pages a day. And so that's what these are. And then as you get to the tab, you can just take it out. And I did recently try this on a book I was just reading through the Ravenhood series, and I found it actually very useful and helpful to do that way. It gave me like a goal to reach, and it's visual, so it's great if you're somebody that needs that like visual goal to reach. And so you don't have to do anything fancy like these tabs. You could do just paper. You could do like a sticker from a coffee house. You can do whatever just to mark X amount of pages on it. If you choose to do the tabs, however, there are lots of different options. These are tabs that these are the ones that I really like. They're pretty wide, and these plastic pieces can be reused as like a bookmark or whatever. And they're easy. The tabs are easy to come off and re-put on another one, and you can, however you want to do that. And then there's these ones. These are more of a thinner one. If you compare them, like this is much thicker. This is thinner. These are great too. I don't mind these ones. And then these are some other ones that are just as thick as these, but they're basic colors. So these are great too. And you can find these all over. You can find them on Amazon, Walmart, anywhere. So just keep that in mind. Like, it doesn't have to be anything fancy. I will link these tabs down below for you if you are interested in the ones that I've shown today. But there's lots of different options. So one of the things we talked about was, well, let's buddy read it. Like, let's do it together. That way we hold each other accountable. We get through it, and we move through the book. Then we also talked about the other way to do it is the tabbing method. But also, she wants to finish it by the end of the summer. So I said, okay, well, let's think about that for a second. Like, how many do we need to read per month? Like, let's chunk it. And we decided, okay, well, we need to get to chapter 8, which is approximately like 120 pages into this book by the end of June. And I was like, well, that's doable. And I said, okay, well, if we break that even further down, what does that look like? And we determined that it was like less than 5 pages a day. And she, towards the end, she was like, man, this makes it so much easier. It's not so daunting, so overwhelming. And I said, yeah, it doesn't have to be. Reading doesn't have to be overwhelming. It can be enjoyable. And I love to read simply because I gained a lot of knowledge, whether it's fiction or nonfiction. And so I'm really excited to get to start this book with her. I'm excited to see the content in it, but I'm also excited to do the buddy read. And I feel like when doing a buddy read, like, you get so much more out of that, because you get to collaborate and talk about what was discussed in the book and how it relates to the world today. How does that relate to different aspects of your life, things like that. And so I'm excited to do that. The other thing you can do, this is a kind of an above and beyond technique, and it's not necessarily to help you read more or faster. It's more to help you retain the information. I have quite a few friends that have ADHD, or they just have a hard time like concentrating on the book, just because they get lost in the words. It's hard for them to not comprehend, but it's not connecting the dots as easily. And I grew up where, I struggled with reading comprehension. And it wasn't until in my later years into adulthood that I found a technique that worked to help me grasp and retain the information easier, and connect those bigger dots, especially like in a book series. So with nonfiction, I'll show you this book. This is How to Stop Losing Your Shit with Your Kids by Carla Nuremberg. And she's actually a really good author. I really liked her parenting books. But basically, I've referenced this book often, and by highlighting and writing in it and tabbing, I've identified this is how I can retain it and take it further than just this book. And so I do that with nonfiction. I also do it with fiction. So I read the Court of Wings and Ruin series book by Sarah J. Maas, and this is part of the Court and Thorns and Roses series. This is the third book in the series, but I annotated in this book, and this is there's 5 books in the series, but there's a lot of information to gather, and I felt like when I sat down with a pen, and you don't even need the highlighters or the tabs. It's just sit down with a pen and just sit there. And when you're reading and you come across something and you're like, oh my gosh, that, makes so much sense, or I relate to that, write that in there. You'll come back to it. There is a method to the madness when people say handwriting is much more effective than typing. And so I've really enjoyed that. So, it doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to be complicated. Very, very simple. Just grab a pen. If you do want to do highlighting and all of that and artsy, and there's some great, wonderful Pinterest pins and bookstagrams that have how people annotate. And I love it. I'm just not that artistic in that sense. But I use these midliner highlighters, and these are great. I think that they do really well. They don't bleed through to the other page. They're dual pointed, so there's a thin end and then a much more chisel thick, and it's great. I really enjoy these ones. The other ones I don't use so much for annotating, but I've seen a lot of people use is these art skill pens, and they're the same. They're dual tipped, so it's very, very fine side, and then this is very, very thick brush stroke side. These are great for that as well. You can use a pencil. That's good too. But I also found that these pens, and I'll link all this stuff down in the description below, but these pens are amazing. They're very, very thin, pointed, so you can write a lot in a small amount of space, but I love them, and they last a long time, depending on how often you write. The other pens that I found that I really like are these Zebra Savasa pens. They're gel pens. They are thicker, right, but and smoother, but they are very, very nice. And I enjoy writing with these as well. So those are some tips and some tricks for you to read more and immerse yourself more in what you read. And I hope that you found this video helpful today. If you did, give me a book emoji down below with a pen. And I hope you guys have a fabulous day. And we will chat next time.